Ilara Chen woke up with a start. The alarm in her small room on Sanctuary 7 was blaring. She had been asleep for only 4 hours after a long shift watching the stars. Sanctuary 7 was a massive space station where humans lived, floating, at the edge of what used to be human space. Most humans had left this region 300 years ago, deciding to stay away from alien troubles. "Computer, what's the emergency?" Ilara asked, rubbing her eyes. "Commander Chen, we have detected a signal using old military codes," the computer replied in its flat voice. Ilara sat up straight. Old military codes? Nobody had used those for centuries, not since humans had pulled back to their home systems and stopped getting involved in galactic problems. "Show me," she ordered. A screen lit up above her bed. Static filled most of it, but between the noise, a simple message repeated: SOS, New Horizon under attack, unknown enemy, casualties mounting, SOS, New Horizon. Ilara knew that name from history lessons. It was one of the colony planets that refused to come back when Earth called. All humans home, the stubborn settlers had wanted to keep their new world, even if it meant being cut off from the rest of humanity. "Where is this coming from? Get me exact coordinates," she shouted, already pulling on her uniform. Her heart was racing. No human colony had been attacked in her lifetime. The peace treaties had held, until now. 5 minutes later, Ilara burst into the command center of Sanctuary 7. The large room was filled with screens and officers rushing to their stations. General Marcus Wolf, a tall man with gray in his beard, stood in the center looking at a large display. "Commander Chen," he acknowledged her with a nod. "I assume you've seen the signal?" "Yes, sir," she replied, moving to stand beside him. "What do we know?" Marcus pointed to the screen. "Our long-range cameras caught this footage. It's not good." The image showed a small green planet. Around it, several strange ships shaped like giant crystals fired beams down at the surface. The camera zoomed in on a settlement where buildings were already burning. People ran through the streets while shining figures that looked like liquid metal chased them. "Those ships don't match any known design in our database," an officer reported. "They're not from any species we've dealt with before." Ilara frowned. "How is this possible? The Severance Accords should protect that sector, even if the colony stayed behind." "It seems," General Wolf said grimly, "that someone has forgotten why humanity pulled back in the first place." He tapped on the screen, bringing up old footage from the archives. Ilara had seen these videos during her training. They showed the last great human war, when Earth's forces had fought against an aggressive alien alliance. The images showed massive human warships and huge robot warriors, the famous war giants, destroying enemy fleets. Those war giants were why humans had become feared across the galaxy. Each one stood taller than a building, piloted by a human whose mind connected directly to the machine. They had been unstoppable. After winning that war, humanity's leaders had decided that such power was too dangerous. They had hidden away their weapons and pulled back to just a few star systems. "We put our weapons away," Marcus said quietly. "We sealed them where they couldn't hurt anyone." Ilara looked at the burning colony on the screen. The people there were human, just like her, descendants of those who had stayed behind, now being slaughtered. "Sir," she said, turning to the general, "these are our people. They're asking for help." Marcus looked troubled. "The accords are clear. We agreed not to interfere in galactic affairs. If we break that agreement, if we do nothing, those colonists die," Ilara cut in. "We have the means to help them." She walked to a control panel on the wall. A red scanner glowed there with words above it reading Colossus Protocol. This emergency system had never been used, not in all the years Sanctuary 7 had watched the stars. "Commander Chen," Marcus warned, "think carefully. If we activate the protocol, there's no going back. We would be announcing our return to galactic affairs." Ilara looked around the room at the other officers. Some looked afraid, others determined. She thought about the colonists dying while they stood talking. "Send a warning message to the attackers," she ordered. "Tell them to withdraw immediately or face the consequences." A communications officer quickly sent the message on all known frequencies. The response came just minutes later, a simple image, showing one of the crystal ships breaking a human skull. "They think we're weak," someone muttered. Ilara's face hardened. She placed her hand on the red scanner. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." The scanner read her palm print and her eye pattern. Then a mechanical voice announced, "Colossus Protocol activated. Authorization. Commander Ilara Chen." Deep below Sanctuary 7, in massive hidden chambers sealed for centuries, lights began to come on. Row after row of giant humanoid machines stood in silence, their metal bodies covered in dust but still intact. These were the war giants, humanity's most powerful weapons, hidden away but never destroyed. At the same time, in another sealed section, hundreds of sleep pods began to warm up. Inside each pod was a veteran pilot from the last war, kept in suspended animation just in case they were ever needed again. "Send a message to Earth Command," General Wolf ordered. "Tell them Sanctuary 7 has activated the Colossus Protocol in response to an attack on human colonists." As the message was sent, Ilara watched the screens showing the awakening war giants. Maintenance robots were already moving among them, checking systems and clearing away the dust of centuries. "How soon can we deploy?" she asked. An officer checked his readouts. "The first units can be ready in 6 hours, but we have a problem. Who will pilot them? The neural link system requires special training." "That's why we're waking up the veterans," Ilara replied. "They already know how." On the main screen, the attack on New Horizon continued. The crystal ships showed no signs of stopping their bombardment. "They came looking for an easy target," Ilara said, watching the destruction. "Instead, they just woke up the most dangerous force in the galaxy." The sleeping war giants had begun to stir, and soon the attackers would understand the terrible mistake they had made. Deep beneath Sanctuary 7, the massive underground hangars hummed with activity. Dr. Kaito Nakamura walked between rows of enormous war giants. Each metal warrior stood over 30 meters tall, their dark metal bodies gleaming under the lights that had just come on after centuries of darkness. Kaito's ancestors had helped build these machines. Now, as Chief of Dormant Technologies, it was his job to wake them up. He checked the readings on his tablet as thick preservation gel drained from the giant's joints and armor plates. "The power cores should be dead by now," he said to his assistant. "The weapon systems should have decayed." But the readings surprised him. Everything was working perfectly. The war giants had been built to last for centuries in sleep mode. Humanity had not destroyed its weapons, just hidden them away, like someone hiding a dangerous tool instead of throwing it away. "Begin system checks on the first 12 units, Kaito ordered. "I want them ready as soon as possible." In another part of the facility, dozens of medical staff worked around sleep pods where the veteran pilots were slowly waking up. These men and women had fought in the last Great War. When peace came, they had volunteered to go into suspended sleep, just in case they were ever needed again. The first awake was Sergeant Isabella Cruz. The medical staff helped her sit up, as she blinked in confusion. "How?" Her voice was rough from not being used for so long. "How long have I been asleep?" 304 years, Sergeant," a doctor told her. Isabella's eyes widened. "That long? Why wake us now?" "There's been an attack on a human colony. Commander Chen activated the Colossus Protocol." Isabella nodded slowly, taking in this information. Then she swung her legs over the side of the pod. "Where's my giant? Where's Thunderchild?" Meanwhile, in the command center, Commander Chen and General Wolf had called an emergency meeting with all the senior officers of Sanctuary 7. Arguments broke out immediately. "The severance accords were very clear," said Diplomatic Officer Rivera, an older woman with stern eyes. "We agreed not to interfere in galactic politics. If we launch the war giants, we're breaking our own treaty." "A treaty the attackers clearly don't respect," replied Security Chief Jackson, slamming his hand on the table. "Those are humans dying down there." Ilara raised her hand for silence. "I've already sent warning messages to the attackers in every language we know. Their only response was this." She projected an image that had been sent back. A crystal ship breaking a human skull. They think we're weak, General Wolf said grimly. They've heard stories about humanity, that we locked away our strength and forgot how to fight. Then let's show them how wrong they are, Jackson said. Rivera shook her head. We don't even know who they are or why they're attacking. What if there's a reason? What if the colonists provoked them somehow? That doesn't justify killing civilians, Alara replied firmly. But you raise a good point. We need more information. She turned to Communications Officer Patel. Keep trying to contact the colony. We need to know what we're dealing with. Down in the hangar bay, the first war giant had fully activated. The massive machine's eyes glowed bright blue as its systems came online. It raised one huge arm, the eye, movement smooth despite centuries without use. Now it just needed its pilot. Dr. Nakamura, Alara called over the comm system. What's our status? The first 12 giants will be operational within 5 hours, he reported. But we have a problem. The neural link systems require experienced pilots. Our current personnel have only trained in simulators. That's why we're waking the veterans, Alara replied. How many are conscious? 20 so far. Sergeant Cruz is already asking for her old unit. Alara smiled slightly. Isabella Cruz was a legend, the most decorated giant pilot in human history. Having her back in action would boost everyone's morale. Get her whatever she needs, Alara ordered. In the medical bay, Isabella was already on her feet, performing physical exercises to test her body after the long sleep. For her, it felt like she had closed her eyes yesterday, but 3 centuries had passed. The doctor had explained that her body was still only 34 years old, preserved by the sleep pod technology. The world must have changed so much, she said. To the doctor, what's Earth like now? Peaceful, the doctor replied. Most humans live in the inner systems now. Places like Sanctuary 7 are just outposts watching the borders. Isabella nodded. And my family? Did they? The doctor handed her a tablet. Your sister left you a message before she died. And her children left messages too. And their children. Your family has been keeping a record for you all these years. Tears filled Isabella's eyes, but she blinked them away. There would be time for that later. Right now there was a mission. I need to see Thunderchild, she said firmly. In the command center, the first detailed images from the New Horizon colony were coming through. The crystal ships had landed troops that moved like flowing metal. They were systematically destroying everything human. Buildings, vehicles, farms. The colonists fought back with whatever weapons they had, but they were clearly outmatched. We can't wait any longer, Alara decided. Prepare the carrier ships. As soon as we have 12 operational giants and their pilots ready, we launch. General, Wolf looked concerned. 12 giants against that entire fleet, it's not enough. It will have to be, Alara replied. We'll send the rest as they become ready. In the hangar, Isabella stood before her war giant Thunderchild. The massive machine seemed to recognize her, its systems humming louder as she approached. Hello, old friend, she whispered. Did you miss me? Technicians helped her into her pilot suit, a special outfit covered in neural sensors that would connect her mind to the giant. When she was ready, they guided her to the entry point at the giant's chest. A small platform lifted her up, and a hatch opened to reveal the control chamber inside. Isabella stepped in, and the hatch sealed behind her. The chamber was dark for a moment, then lit up as systems activated around her. She sat in the control chair and placed her hands on the neural pads. Neural link initializing, said the giant's AI. Pilot identified. Cruz, Isabella, Sergeant, ID 7724A. Welcome back, Sergeant Cruz. Isabella felt the familiar rush as her mind connected with the machine. Suddenly, the giant's body felt like her own. Its massive arms were her arms. Its powerful legs were her legs. Its advanced sensors became her enhanced senses. She made Thunderchild raise one huge fist, then opened and closed it, testing the response time. Perfect, as if no time had passed at all. Thunderchild is online and combat ready, she reported through the comm system. Across the hangar, 11 more giants were coming to life as their pilots connected with them. The first wave of humanity's legendary warriors was almost ready. In orbit around New Horizon, the crystal ships continued their attack, unaware of what was coming for them. They had heard stories about the human war giants, but those were just old tales. The humans had gone soft, hiding in their home systems. For centuries, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The sleeping giants had awakened and they were angry. The three massive human carrier ships moved silently through space. They used special stealth technology that made them invisible to enemy sensors. Each carrier held 4 war giants and their pilots, ready for battle. Captain Alexei Petrov stood on the bridge of the lead carrier, the Retribution. He was another veteran from the last war, now awake after 3 centuries of sleep. For him, the victory celebrations felt like just a few days ago, though the calendar said it was over 300 years in the past. "Stealth systems working perfectly," reported his tactical officer, a young woman named Lynn who had been born long after Alexei went into cryosleep. "The enemy ships haven't detected us." Alexei studied the crystal ships on the main screen. They were unlike anything from his time. Shining vessels that seemed to be made of transparent crystal with glowing cores inside. There were 25 enemy ships in total, most of them surrounding the small green planet of New Horizon. "All pilots to launch bays," he ordered. "We'll maintain stealth until the first giants are away." In the giant launch bay below, Isabella, Cruz and 11 other veteran pilots made final checks on their neural links. They wore their special pilot suits covered with sensors that would connect their minds to their war giants. "These crystal bastards," Isabella called out to her fellow pilots. "They think humanity forgot how to fight. Let's remind the galaxy why they used to fear us." The other pilots nodded, their faces serious but determined. Most of them had fought together in the last war. Now they were awake in a time when everything they knew was ancient history. "Launch plan is simple," Isabella continued. "We deploy under stealth, position for optimal attack angles, then hit them all at once. Captain Petrov will signal when it's time to drop stealth." On the surface of New Horizon, the colonists had retreated to their last underground bunker. A young colonial officer named Thomas stood at a cracked observation window, watching the crystal ships in the sky. His family had passed down stories of Earth's mighty warriors for generations, though few believed they would ever return. "They're changing formation," he noted, watching the crystal ships move into new positions. "They're getting ready for the final attack." An older man beside him shook his head. "We should have gone back to Earth when our ancestors had the chance." "We belong here," Thomas replied firmly. "This is our home." In space above them, the 12 war giants launched from their carrier ships. They moved using only momentum and tiny bursts from their thrusters, maintaining stealth as they spread out into attack formation. Each giant was a massive humanoid machine, standing over 30 meters tall when on solid ground. In space, they looked like metal humans with heavy armor and powerful weapons. Inside Thunderchild, Isabella felt the familiar sensation of becoming one with her giant. The machine's sensors became her eyes and ears, its massive arms and legs extensions of her own body. The neural link was so complete that she could feel the cold of space against the giant's metal skin. She positioned herself above the largest crystal ship, apparently the enemy flagship. Her weapons were ready, a massive plasma lance in her, giant's right hand and missile launchers built into its shoulders. "All units in position," she reported quietly. "On my mark," Captain Petrov's voice came through the comm. 3, 2, 1, mark." In that instant, all 12 war giants dropped their stealth fields and became visible. Isabella's giant appeared. Directly above the enemy flagship, its massive form suddenly materializing as if by magic. Before the crystal ship could react, Isabella struck. The plasma lance in Thunderchild's hand activated, forming a blade of pure energy 20 meters long. With one powerful slash, she cut the enemy flagship in half, the superheated plasma knife slicing through the crystalline hull like it was made of paper. All around the battlefield, the other 11 giants revealed themselves, each targeting a different enemy capital ship. The Crystal Fleet, caught completely by surprise, tried to scatter and return fire, but it was too late for many of them. Major Rodriguez's giant, Iron Duke, grabbed a smaller crystal ship and crushed it between massive, metal hands. Lieutenant Chang's unit, Jade Dragon, fired a barrage of missiles that turned 3 enemy vessels into clouds of crystal shards. Across the battlefield, humanity's war giants destroyed ship after ship with overwhelming force. Inside her giant, Isabella grinned as she locked onto 2 enemy frigates trying to flee. "You wanted humanity's attention," she whispered as her targeting systems confirmed lock. "Well, now you have it." She fired Thunderchild's shoulder-mounted railguns, sending hypersonic projectiles through both ships. The crystal vessels shattered, their glowing cores exploding in silent flashes of blue-white energy. On New Horizons' surface, Thomas and the other colonists watched in amazement as pieces of the enemy fleet began falling through the atmosphere, burning up like meteors. "What's happening?" someone asked. Thomas could barely believe his eyes. Among the stars, giant humanoid figures moved between the crystal ships, destroying them with weapons of incredible power. "The war giants," he whispered in awe. The stories were true. The battle was shockingly one-sided. The crystal ships fired back with energy weapons, but the giants were too fast, too strong. Their armor absorbed hits that would have destroyed normal ships, and their neural-linked pilots responded with reflexes no normal pilot could match. "We've neutralized 16 enemy vessels," Isabella reported. 9 are attempting to retreat. "Disable their engines if possible," Captain Petrov ordered from the Retribution. "We need prisoners for questioning." Isabella and 3 other giants chased down the fleeing ships. With precise attacks, they damaged the crystal vessel's engines without destroying them completely. Only 3 enemy ships managed to escape, jumping to faster-than-light travel despite damage to their hulls. In less than 30 minutes, the battle was over. Humanity's war giants floated amid the debris of the shattered crystal fleet, victorious and barely damaged. "Secure the disabled vessels," Captain Petrov ordered. "Prepare boarding teams. We need to find out who these attackers are and why they targeted our colony." While the carriers moved in to collect prisoners and salvage, Isabella directed Thunderchild down toward New Horizons' surface. Her giant burned through the atmosphere, the special heat shields on its armor glowing red but holding firm. She landed Thunderchild outside the main colonial settlement, now mostly in ruins from the enemy bombardment. The giant's feet left deep, impressions in the soil as it walked toward the underground bunker where life signs were detected. The bunker door slowly opened, and Thomas led a group of colonists outside. They looked up in wonder at the towering war giant, its metal body gleaming in the planet's sunlight. Thunderchild knelt down, bringing its head closer to the ground. A hatch opened in its chest, and Isabella emerged, still wearing her pilot suit. "I'm Sergeant Isabella Cruz of Sanctuary 7, she called down to the colonists. "We received your SOS. Thomas stepped forward, still staring in disbelief. "You came. After all these centuries, Earth finally heard us." Isabella smiled. "We never stopped listening. We just hoped we'd never have to fight again." She looked around at the damaged settlement, then back to the colonists. "But when our people call for help, the war giants answer." In orbit above, Captain Petrov received the first reports from the boarding teams. The crystal beings they had captured were unlike any species humanity had encountered before. Silicon-based life forms with bodies that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. "We'll need time to establish communication," the xenolinguistics specialist reported. "Their language seems to be based on resonance patterns rather than sounds as we understand them." Petrov nodded grimly. "Take all the time you need. We have to know why they attacked a human colony after centuries of peace. And we need to know if more of them are coming." The victory had been swift and complete, but Petrov knew it might be just the beginning. Humanity had just announced its return to the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. The sleeping giants were awake, and the galaxy would have to adjust to that reality. While the war giants secured the space around New Horizon, Commander Alara Chen led a team to the planet's surface. They found a colony in ruins, buildings reduced to rubble, fields burned, and many dead colonists. The crystal ships had been thorough in their destruction. Ilara's team landed near where Isabella's giant, Thunderchild, stood guard over the survivors. Medical staff rushed to help the injured colonists while security teams spread out to check for any remaining enemy forces. Thomas, the young colonial officer, guided Ilara to their damaged command center. Inside, colonists had set up emergency power and were trying to get their systems working again. "Tell me everything you know about these attackers," Ilara said as they walked. "They call themselves the Crystalline Concordance," Thomas explained, bringing up damaged files on a cracked screen. "They appeared at the edge of our system 3 months ago with a small scout ship. At first, they just watched us from a distance." "When did they start attacking?" Ilara asked, studying the blurry images of the crystal ships. An older woman stepped forward. She was the colony's historian, Professor Reyes. "After we told them about our human heritage," she said sadly, "we thought they would be friendly. During our first communication, we shared our history, how our ancestors chose to stay here when Earth called everyone home. As soon as they confirmed we were from Earth, they cut the transmission," Thomas added. "The attacks began the next day." Ilara frowned. "They attacked you just because you're human? That makes no sense. The severance accords should have protected you." "What accords?" Professor Reyes asked, looking confused. "We've been on our own for 3 centuries. We don't know what agreements Earth made after we stayed behind." Meanwhile, in orbit, Captain Petrov and his team worked to understand the captured crystalline beings. The aliens' bodies were silicon-based, a form of life very different from humans. They communicated through vibrations that made their crystal bodies resonate with different tones. After hours of careful work, the xenolinguistics team created a basic translation program. Captain Petrov faced the captured crystalline captain in a special containment chamber on board the Retribution. "Why did you attack the human colony?" Petrov demanded, the crystal being vibrated, and the translator converted the resonant tones into human speech. "Your kind was warned. 300 cycles ago, the Galactic Conclave decreed that humans must never again build war machines. Your colonies were allowed to exist only if the war giants remained dormant." Petrov leaned forward, surprised by this answer. "We withdrew, voluntarily. There was no decree forcing us." The crystalline captain made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "Your leaders were given a choice: withdraw your forces or be eliminated. They chose withdrawal and signed the true severance accords, not the version in your historical records." This revelation stunned Petrov. If true, it meant that humanity's noble self-isolation had actually been forced upon them. The story of a peaceful withdrawal had been a lie, a cover to hide a humiliating ultimatum. Petrov immediately sent this information to Commander Chen on the planet below. She received it while inspecting the colony's damaged defense systems with Thomas. "This can't be right," she said after reading the report. "Our history records clearly state that humanity chose isolation to avoid further conflicts." "Would your leaders admit they were forced to retreat?" Thomas asked. "That doesn't sound like something proud military commanders would want remembered." Ilara had to admit he had a point. She contacted Sanctuary 7 and requested an urgent search of their secure archives. Back on Sanctuary 7, Ilara's request reached Dr. Nakamura. He had special access to the oldest and most restricted files in the station's database. In a sealed room deep inside the station, he accessed the AI custodian that held humanity's complete historical record. "Show me the unredacted severance accords," he demanded. The AI hesitated, then displayed files that had been hidden for centuries. Dr. Nakamura read in shock as the true story was revealed. Humanity hadn't withdrawn by choice. After the last war, a coalition of alien species had united against Earth. They feared human military technology was advancing too quickly, especially the war giants. The aliens had given Earth's leaders an ultimatum: confine humans to their home systems and lock away their weapons or face extinction. The choice had been made to accept these terms rather than fight a war against most of the galaxy. To preserve humanity's pride, the truth had been hidden. The story of a noble, voluntary, Withdrawal was created instead. Dr. Nakamura immediately sent this information to Commander Chen and Captain Petrov. On New Horizon, Alara read it with growing anger. So the crystalline concordance wasn't violating a treaty, she realized. In their view, they were enforcing it. The colony's existence wasn't the problem, it was our response to the SOS. By activating the war giants, we broke the real agreement. Does it matter? Tomas asked. They were killing us, you had to respond. It matters because this isn't over, Alara said grimly. Those 3 ships that escaped, they'll report what happened here. If this galactic conclave still exists, they'll see our actions as a declaration of war. On the Retribution, Captain Petrov continued questioning the crystalline captain. If what you say is true, why attack this colony now? It has existed for 3 centuries without problems. The crystal being vibrated. We are new to this sector. Our species only gained faster than light travel 50 cycles ago. When we discovered a human settlement, we reported it to the conclave. They ordered us to test the colony's defenses, to see if humans had maintained any of their forbidden technology. And when you confirmed they were just peaceful colonists with basic weapons? The orders were clear. If they were truly isolated humans, they could be permitted to live. But at the first sign they could contact Earth or access advanced technology, they were to be eliminated. Your war giants proved the conclave was right to fear humans. Petrov's face darkened. You killed innocent people based on something that happened 300 years ago. Your kind was judged too dangerous to be allowed free access to the stars, the crystal being replied. The war giants proved this judgment correct. You created machines of death that could not be matched. In the command center of the Retribution, the long-range sensors suddenly began to alarm. The 3 escaped crystal ships had jumped to faster-than-light travel with damage to their hulls, but the sensors could track the general direction they had gone. Now those same sensors detected massive fleet movements throughout the sector. Ships from multiple species were mobilizing, all heading toward human space. Petrov immediately contacted Commander Chen. The crystalline concordance has spread the word. Their allies are coming. A lot of them. On New Horizon, Alara looked at the data Petrov had sent. The readings showed potentially hundreds of ships gathering. It seems we've woken up more than just our own sleeping giants, she said quietly. The whole galaxy is stirring. The victory at New Horizon had been swift and complete, but it was just the beginning of a much larger conflict, one that humanity had unknowingly been avoiding. For 3 centuries, the true test was yet to come. 27 days after humanity's return to the galactic stage, a massive fleet gathered at the edge of human space. Ships from 17 different alien species, some ancient enemies of each other, united by their common fear of humanity's war giants. On Sanctuary 7, Commander Alara Chen stood before a large holographic display showing the enemy fleet. The blue dots representing alien vessels filled the screen, outnumbering the red dots of human ships by hundreds to 1. We can't win this conventionally, General Wolf admitted as they studied the display. Even with all our hidden technology, we're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. During the past weeks, Sanctuary 7 had activated every dormant weapon and ship they had stored. More veteran pilots had been awakened from cryosleep, and all 50 war giants were now operational. 3 more carrier ships had been prepared for battle, but it wasn't nearly enough. What about Earth? Asked Isabella, who had returned from New Horizon with the rescued colonists. Have they responded to our messages? Alara nodded. They're debating their response. The inner systems have been peaceful for so long that many people don't want to get involved in a war. They might not have a choice, General Wolf said grimly. If we fall, the conclave will likely target Earth next. Meanwhile, Dr. Nakamura had made a discovery in the deepest, most classified section of Sanctuary 7, a sealed vault marked with warnings in 20 different languages. He brought his findings to the command center. I found something called Project Prometheus, he explained, showing them schematics of a strange device on his tablet. It's smaller than a war giant, but potentially far more powerful. What does it do? Alara asked, studying the complex diagrams. According to these records, it can temporarily disable all advanced technology in an entire star system, Nakamura explained. Our own systems would be protected by special shielding, but everything else would shut down. Does it work? General Wolf asked. It was only theoretical when we withdrew from Galactic affairs, Nakamura admitted. But the simulations look promising. We might be able to build it with the materials we have. How long would it take? Ilara asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Ilara shook her head. We don't have that much time. The Conclave fleet will reach New Horizon in 10 days. As they debated, Isabella and her squadron of war giants engaged in a desperate battle against advanced scouts from the Conclave fleet. Her giant, Thunderchild, already showed damage from previous fights, but she and her pilots tore through the enemy ships with practiced skill. They're testing our capabilities, she reported back to Sanctuary 7. Measuring our response times, weapons strength. They're looking for weaknesses. In a bold move, Commander Chen decided to open direct communications with the Conclave. Leadership. The main screen in the command center showed a council of alien leaders, beings of different shapes and sizes. At the center sat a tall insect-like creature with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. You forced us into isolation because you feared what we might become. Ilara addressed them. Now you attack our forgotten colonies and act surprised when we defend them? The insect being responded, its words translated through the computer. Your kind develops weapons too quickly, Warmaker. Your retreat was a mercy we now regret extending. This time, we will ensure humans can never again threaten galactic stability. We only want peace, Ilara argued. The war giants were awakened to defend our people, not to conquer. Peace is what we offered 3 centuries ago, the alien replied. Your leaders accepted our terms, now you have broken that agreement. Our people were being slaughtered, Ilara protested. Unnecessary test. The crystalline concordance merely confirmed what we suspected. Humans have maintained their war potential. You cannot be trusted with such power. The communication ended, and long-range sensors detected the Conclave fleet beginning its advance toward human space. With options running out, Ilara authorized a desperate plan. Captain Petrov would lead a small strike force of elite Atlas units directly to the homeworld of the crystalline concordance. If they could capture or neutralize the crystalline leadership, perhaps they could force the Conclave to negotiate rather than fight. Meanwhile, Isabella's squadron would attempt to slow the main fleet's advance, using hit-and-run tactics to delay them as long as possible. As preparations for this mission continued, a surprising communication arrived. From Earth itself. The inner systems, home to most of humanity, had detected the growing conflict. The message appeared on the main screen in the command center. To Sanctuary 7 and all frontier outposts. We have monitored the situation. The full truth of the Severance Accords has been released to all citizens. A vote has been held. Humanity stands united. The defense fleet is mobilizing. Generation ships are changing course. We are coming. Hold the line. For the first time in 3 centuries, Earth was sending its forces to the frontier. Billions of humans living in peace for generations had voted to support their endangered kin. They're coming, Ilara announced to the gathered officers. But they won't arrive in time to stop the first wave of the Conclave fleet. We still need to buy time. Captain Petrov's mission to the crystalline homeworld became even more critical. If they could create enough confusion and disruption among the enemy leadership, it might delay the main attack until Earth's forces arrived. The strike team prepared for departure. 8 of the best war giant pilots were selected, including Isabella. They would use a special stealth ship to reach the crystalline homeworld undetected, then deploy their giants for a precision strike against key targets. This isn't about destroying their world, Ilara explained during the final briefing. This is about showing them we can strike anywhere, anytime. We need them to fear us enough to consider negotiation. As the stealth ship prepared to launch, Isabella made one final check of Thunderchild's systems. The giant had been repaired, its armor reinforced and weapons upgraded, but she knew they were facing impossible odds. We might not make it back from this one, she told her fellow pilots. That's why they woke us up, replied Major Rodriguez, another veteran pilot, for the missions no one else can do. The small strike force launched from Sanctuary 7 under full stealth. As they departed, long-range sensors detected the first wave of the Conclave fleet entering the New Horizons system. The massive alien armada began deploying its forces, preparing to eliminate any human presence in the system. The sleeping giants of humanity were fully awake now, but they faced a galaxy united against them. The true test of their strength and their wisdom was about to begin. Isabella Cruz fought with everything she had. Her war giant Thunderchild moved with incredible speed despite its battle damage. She had already destroyed 7 enemy ships, but there were always more coming. "There are too many," she said through the comm as she dodged enemy fire. Her squadron was fighting a delaying action against the advanced scouts of the Conclave fleet. They had hoped to slow the enemy's approach, but the aliens kept pushing forward. A blast hit Thunderchild's left shoulder, tearing through the armor. Warning lights flashed inside Isabella's control chamber. The neural link flared with pain, as if her own arm had been injured. "Fall back to Point Lambda," she ordered the other pilots. "We'll regroup and—" Another hit, this time directly to Thunderchild's power core. The giant systems began to fail. Isabella felt the neural link weakening as emergency protocols engaged. "Isabella, get out of there," Major Rodriguez called through the static-filled comm, but it was too late. Thunderchild was critically damaged, drifting in space with minimal life support. Isabella tried to restart the main systems, but nothing responded. With her remaining power, she directed the damaged giant toward a small moon. The emergency thrusters gave her just enough control to crash land rather than burn up in the atmosphere. Thunderchild hit the moon's surface hard, sliding across the dusty ground before coming to rest against a ridge. Inside, Isabella checked her situation. Life support was failing. Communications were down to emergency bands only. With her remaining power, she sent what she believed would be her final message. "They're too many, but they're still afraid of us. Use that." Meanwhile, Captain Petrov's strike force had reached the crystalline homeworld. It was a beautiful planet with mountains that looked like giant crystals and cities that seemed to have grown naturally from the ground rather than being built. The Prometheus device was armed and ready, but as they prepared for their attack, Dr. Nakamura's voice came through on a secure channel from Sanctuary 7. "Captain, I've completed the translation of their historical archives. You need to see this before you act." The file showed a shocking truth. 3 centuries ago, during the last war, a rogue human general had used experimental weapons to destroy 2 neutral alien worlds. These planets had wanted no part in the conflict, but they were rich in resources. The general wanted. Millions of innocent beings had died. This atrocity had been erased from human records, but the rest of the galaxy remembered. Their fear of humans wasn't irrational. It was based on experience. We weren't just feared for our technology, Petrov realized. We were feared because some of us crossed lines that should never be crossed. On the moon where she had crashed, Isabella was surprised when her emergency beacon was answered. But the rescuers weren't human. A small ship landed nearby and several alien beings emerged, their bodies covered in feathers with bird-like features. Their leader approached Thunderchild cautiously. Using a translation device, she introduced herself. "I am Kira Vash of the Aviary Coalition. We monitored your battle." Isabella watched through her giant's damaged cameras as the aliens helped open an emergency hatch. When they pulled her from the wreckage, she was too weak to resist. "Why are you helping me?" she asked as they treated her injuries in their ship. "Not all of us support the Conclave's methods," Kira Vash explained. "Some of us believe humans deserve the chance to rejoin galactic society as equals, not enemies." The avian alien showed Isabella data on her ship's computer. The Conclave leadership is divided. Many younger species never experienced the last war and question why humans are treated differently. At the crystalline homeworld, Petrov made a fateful decision. Instead of launching the attack, he opened communications with the crystalline leadership. He showed them the truth he had learned, that humans had been kept ignorant of their own history, that the real reason for their isolation had been hidden. "We've lived apart long enough to know it's not the answer," he told them. And you've lived in fear of us long enough to know that's not sustainable either. He made an unprecedented offer: full disclosure of all remaining human military technology, in exchange for a new accord, one that would allow humanity to rejoin galactic affairs under mutually agreed restrictions. "We don't want war," he said simply. "We just want our place among the stars." As these negotiations began, the first ships from Earth arrived at the frontier. But they weren't warships as everyone expected. They were massive civilian vessels carrying diplomats, scientists, and artists. Humanity had chosen to lead with its other strengths. 3 months later, on a neutral space station, representatives from all species gathered to sign the new Concord. Commander Alara Chen and the Crystalline leader simultaneously placed their marks on the document. Human colonies would be protected, and humanity would gradually rejoin galactic society, but with transparency about military developments and mutual defense pacts. In a symbolic gesture, Isabella Cruz and several other war giant pilots ceremonially powered down their machines in front of the assembled delegates. The giants would be preserved in a museum, a reminder of both humanity's ingenuity and the dangers of unchecked militarization. The war giants served their purpose, Alara said as she stood with Thomas from New Horizon, watching ships from dozens of species departing peacefully. But it's our capacity for both war and peace that makes us human. The galaxy needed to be reminded of both. Isabella, now recovered from her injuries, had been offered a position as Earth's first military liaison to the Aviari Coalition. Kiravash would be her counterpart. "When I went into cryosleep 300 years ago," Isabella told her new alien colleague, "I never imagined waking up to help make peace rather than war." "The best warriors know when not to fight," Kiravash replied. "Your people have learned much during your isolation." On New Horizon, the colony was being rebuilt. Help came not just from Earth but from several alien species who sent aid and workers. Among them were even some crystalline beings, working to repair what their kind had destroyed. Thomas watched as human children played with young aliens in the newly constructed park. "When I sent that SOS," he said to a visiting Earth diplomat, "I just wanted to save my home. I never thought it would change the galaxy." "The SOS didn't just wake up our war giants," the diplomat replied. "It woke up our humanity, the part of us that reaches out instead of hiding away." In orbit around Earth, a new type of ship was being built, one designed for exploration rather than war. Its name, painted on the hull in large letters, was Thunder, Child 2. But unlike its predecessor, this vessel carried scientists and diplomats along with its defensive systems. The sleeping giants had awakened, but they had chosen to build rather than destroy. And in doing so, they had found their true strength. End of the SOS that woke up the sleeping human war giants.